Have you ever had the ground just fall out from underneath you? Have you ever had the thing that you were depending on just disappear? Lewis did. Lewis and Clark's expedition was just beginning. They had just left civilization, were starting out on their grand expedition. And they were so excited to have this opportunity, yet they had no idea what they would meet. And just a few days into the trip, Lewis climbed up this big cliff that was overlooking the plains and the river, and he was all by himself. He just had his trusty dog, a big Newfoundland named Seaman, with him. And off into the distance, he could see Clark and the boats drifting down the river. And then, suddenly, the cliff face that he was standing on, which was about 90 feet over the river, just crumbled and gave way. And he just started falling. Without thinking, Lewis flipped around and whipped out his hunting knife and jammed it into the face of the cliff wall. And he, it was a miracle that it caught into a small crack, just about 20 feet. He fell 20 feet and then stopped, just dangling there, holding himself by his knife. His dog was going crazy, barking, and Lewis looked frantically for handholds and footholds, and he slowly started to climb back up the cliff. And right as he got almost to the top of the cliff, he felt something grab his sleeve and pull him up. It was his dog that had just bitten his sleeve and pulled back as hard as he could. And as Lewis got off the cliff and he pulled back to where he was safe, he just sat there and his heart was pounding. And he held that dog in one arm and he looked at that knife in the other hand, and he couldn't believe that he was alive. You see, the Bible says that, well, it says that we're going to have trouble. The Bible doesn't promise any of us a free pass through life. Jesus says, in this world you'll have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. Paul says, you will be tempted, but you will be given a way out. He means that we'll never be overcome by evil. God will always give us something to help us get through it. For Lewis, it was that knife and his dog. And as he was climbing up the cliff and as he was looking at the gorgeous vista of this uncharted American Wild West, he had no idea that in seconds his life would be in danger. And he had no idea that God had given him exactly what he needed to get through the crisis. Now, we're all facing crises in our days and in our lives. And many times we're tempted to just look at our situation, to look down and see we're 70 feet above a raging river with rocks, and if one slip, we're gone. And when we look at all the odds stacked up against us or how crazy life is, we're tempted to quit, to let go, say, well, I can't do this. Or we're tempted just to hang on and wait for someone to rescue us. But no one was coming to help Lewis. It was just him. And that's when we have to dig deep and realize that we're more powerful than we know, that we're stronger than we know, that we're tougher than we think. And to take whatever knife God has put in our hand and whatever dog God has put by our side and refuse to give up. You see, the only way Lewis was able to make it up that cliff was by looking up. And as he wrote about it in his diary that night, Lewis did not tell us if he was praying, but we know that he was looking up. And when that cliff cracks underneath you and you find out that your health isn't what it's supposed to be, or your spouse isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing, or your job falls apart, or who knows what's going on with our society as a whole, don't give up. Look up. Because God will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. He will always provide a way out. You see, life is crazy, but God is faithful. and he will get you through. The Bible's full of times where he calls us victors, not victims, where he tells us that we will run and not be weary. It's time to start believing those promises, to speak those promises. And when you start falling, just know God is with you, and you can climb right out of it. God bless.